I said, this webinar has been put together and organized by the Word of Life International, a South Bronx-based nonprofit organization founded and led by Reverend John and Pastor Felicia Udo-Okon, and they do such great works in the community and to eradicate hunger and to bring people closer. So this is one of the great initiatives that Reverend John and Pastor Felicia have undertaken on the Word of Life.
In this particular document called Seeing the Water, 7 Values Targets for Anti-Racism Action. And I'm going to just focus on 2 of them here. The first is this narrow focus on the individual, and bringing that up because that's an issue we deal with in public health frequently, which is we want to kind of go and focus on individual behavior. Sometimes we do that in communities of faith, when what we're trying to talk about here is more these systems and structures that impact all of us. And also to call out the concept of white supremacist ideology, something that we've seen in the recent election and is impacting our politics in many ways, and just something that needs to be named and called out overall in the context of what we're talking about today. Next slide, please. So Kelly and I and Alex will do a recap of the sessions that we've already done. And I think most of the people here on the call were here for most, if not all of them, but still I think it's helpful as we start to chart our path forward in terms of community advocacy. So you're all aware, I'm sure, of the disparities regarding COVID-19. So the disproportionate impact on African-American and Latinx communities. And it's really stunning when we look at a lot of these statistics. We were very glad to have Dr. Dial Hewlett Jr., who's an infectious disease specialist, to walk us through a lot of this. But just a brief overview. A lot of this connects to these higher rates of preventable underlying chronic disease and medical conditions that happen in communities of color. It's related to a lack of access to basic primary medical care, which is made much worse by these socioeconomic factors. Again, all of these issues are interlinked. The limited access to diagnostic testing we've seen, and then the general lack of awareness and misinformation in poor and underserved communities, which connects, of course, also to the digital divide. Next slide, please. And then some of the statistics here, as we've mentioned, these really kind of shocking disparities in death and sickness and hospitalization in Chicago and then in New York. And just to mention some of the New York ones, Hispanic or Latinx people accounting for 34% of the deaths in New York City, while being 29% of the city's population. African-American Black people accounting for 28% of deaths, while only being 22% of the population, with white New Yorkers accounting for 27% of deaths, but making up 32% of the population.
I don't need to recap everything that was said about the previous sessions. I definitely think we're all aware that there's the underlying factor of race being a factor in our health outcomes, in our environmental outcomes, in our housing outcomes, in our food insecurity. And that also, I mean, even right now, just a statistic that I've been holding on to is that right now, 54% of head of households in the shelter system are Black, despite being only 24% of New York's population. And that number has only gone up since COVID-19.
What he's doing a great job. As far as the lots, a lot of lots, I've been in this community for a long time. Because when I used to play stickball and basketball, I used to play with the Irish and the Italian boys, and then it became basically they start moving out. Integration became where the blacks moved in. Then eventually the Latinos, and now it's predominantly Latinos. But I was here when it was burning. We had the heroin addiction, the crack. The Bronx was burning down like no other place in the borough, and I seen all that, and I think that we can do a lot of things. We communicate, reach out, and stop being selfish. I know so many people that are doing good things, but they want all the claim and the recognition for themselves. Now, as far as the lots are still owned by the original people that was here years ago, who passed it on as they deceased to their kids, their family members. A lot of our lots are owned by people that don't live here, basically Jewish, Irish, Italian people, and they're not giving up that property. They're gonna hold out until somebody buy it. They don't want to donate a thing to us. They're not going to do that. So we have to find another way, and we have to reach out, and maybe we have to put our dollars together to buy some of these lots. They're doing that all in the South Bronx and other places and underprivileged neighborhoods. I think we have to start thinking outside the box while they're thinking inside their box. Their box is a box of opposition, and to hold us down and not to give us opportunity to be self-sustainable people. But I believe we can break that barrier if we put our resources together and work with each other.
I think the discussion here will be driven by, our ability to generate resources to support our individual programs and also collectively, because one of the things that hamper, all the efforts is usually coming down to, finance. So I think a very meaningful conversation and constructive approach to solving this problem will include brainstorming and coming up with a plan that can help us to generate resources to support our individual programs and our collective efforts.
And those are the things that are very interesting to me, connecting all these parts. I agree with Pastor John that there's all these shelters out there, but they don't have the programs. They don't have a program to engage the community and keep them engaged. At my office, I have a place that's right next door to us. And, sometimes they provide beds throughout the night, but during the day, whether it's youth or men, they're walking the street. There's no place for them to go. There's no direction. So I think, beginning to create programs, and since we're looking at the food insecurities, and we're looking, I love the, the program that was introduced. I did not attend that webinar, but whatever was presented this evening, that looked like a very noble idea for something that we can engage our community in with grassroots people, and dealing with, somebody like Bronx Community College and with the elected officials, and get everybody to buy into that is how we structure and we write this and right there. We're looking to knock out 3 things in one scenario. And I think, sustainability, support, self-sufficiency, that's at the top of the chain. So that's my piece.
So I don't think we have time to sort of get into very specific sort of organizing strategies, which I wanted to get to. I think this conversation was really valuable and definitely uplifted a few things, all of which could be very realistic and winnable targets and winnable campaigns. But I guess I want to make space in lieu of that, perhaps for folks, particularly Reverend John or anyone else to discuss what would be a good next step. Would folks like to reconvene this and have a larger conversation and set some targets of specific things they would like to tackle, and then discuss strategies and build a strategy to get there. I think sort of setting up a continuing conversation and setting up sort of a plan for next steps of how to decide what to tackle, and then how to decide how to work on that feels like it would be really fruitful. So when I set this part of the agenda, I was aware we would probably not get through it all. And I think this conversation's been really valuable. But where would folks like to go next?
I want to say that, first of all, we're so privileged to have the opportunity to work with the Interfaith Network, who have guided us through this whole process. We are also privileged to have the New York Presbyterian Hospital as a partner. And we have the Columbia University Public Health. And now, from what Ms. Jones was saying, we also have the opportunity to partner with Lehman College. And Patricia also mentioned that the Bronx Community College will be a great will be a great opportunity for us to also work with. So I believe the pieces are coming together. I would see us forming a network or a coalition. Word of Life have been working on, food insecurity for quite some time now, and we've also been involved in various initiatives. But what I've realized is that one organization cannot make any meaningful impact, because some of the crises we have in the South Bronx are so deep, they're so deep rooted. It will take a coalition, it will take people coming together. And when I say coalition, I mean people that are vested in the community, people that have a stake in the community. What we've been facing in the South Bronx is people come into our community, set up programs, get funding, and once the funding dries out, they run. They abandon us. They abandon the community. They're not providing services in the community because they want to uplift the community. They are providing the services because maybe they have the funding, or they come into the community and create a need and get funding. And the funding is not invested in the community. Unfortunately, our community leaders, our elected officials over the years have partnered with these people to keep the South Bronx where it is today. We're talking about gentrification. All the buildings that have been set up in the South Bronx, most of the residents cannot afford to live in them. And our elected officials, they talk about what they have been able to accomplish, how many buildings they have been able to set up. Now, the question is, who are you setting up the buildings for? And then we have been dealing with poverty, low income, living below the poverty level. Why can't we create jobs? Why can't we train our people to start businesses? Why can't we find ways to make, funds, resources available to those that want to start businesses? Why can't we have set a goal that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we're going to create so number of jobs in the South Bronx. We're going to create so number of businesses in the South Bronx. And unfortunately, because the poor oftentimes do not have a voice, so we find that they wait until election day and they start stand on the streets and passing out some whatever and get people to vote for them. And after the people vote for them, the people don't ask them, what have you accomplished? What did you do for us? 4 years after, 2 years after, they come back for the votes. I've known some politicians that came to our pantry when they were running for election. Once they finish, you don't see them again until next time when it is election time. So I would like us to form a coalition, come together. I'm so glad that so many of us are interested in addressing the food insecurity. We can, I'm so grateful for the work that the Food Bank is doing. Food Bank, City Harvest, all of them are doing. And like Mr. Larry said, it took him like 10 years for him to be able to know some of the businesses in Hunts Point. He's a community leader, but it took him 10 years of hard work to be able to get into Hunts Point and get food donation. I know how difficult it is to get into Hunts Point because of the way business is done there. So I believe if we can be able to have a coalition, form a network, we will be able to work together and access the food for our people